Hey, what's up guys, you got Gypsy and we're back here today for ITL Week 2, trying to bring you guys some more content to the channel because, yeah, lately it's only really just been MPL videos, so trying to bring out more. I'm pretty busy, but hopefully you guys will be enjoying the ITL season. And yeah, for Week 2 we're facing off against SheerForce, so this is a guy we faced in the semis last season, very solid player. I've seen Trevor improve a lot in the last sort of, I want to say like 6 months. He's really improved as a player. He's always been solid, but like he's definitely he's definitely performed really well in the past few seasons that he's been involved in with his respective draft leagues. So yeah, definitely always fun to play Trev. He's definitely a good player, and he has a really threatening team. He's got the Landorus Eye, that is indeed SheerForce Lando. He's got the Zardex and the Azu, so extremely threatening team. Really not sure how he secured all three of those behemoths, but he also has webs from Shuckle to complement that. He's got stuff like Snorlax on his team, which is just like very difficult to take down for a lot of teams unless you've got a really strong hard-hitting attacker. And obviously it does have boosting options with the new buff to Gluttony, with the berries that have been introduced, then giving Snorlax Gluttony. You can really take advantage of curse sets. He's got lots of options on his team, so lots of stuff to prep for. And he's got lots of power with stuff like Alakazam and Sneasel as well in the back. So yeah, definitely a very threatening offensive team, although it is quite vulnerable to some of my offensive threats. So jumping into the team we're bringing today, we are bringing in E-Belt Gren, who has a pretty solid time versus the team he's brought today. Like, if I can get Rock's Chip up, this Gren is looking to go in. That's pretty much the only one I really need to talk about here. Obviously defensive Slowbro because he does stuff like Zard. Got a nice Sally and a nice Mew. Pretty nice Nidoqueen here too. So he did have like Zebstrika on his team as well, which is a bit annoying. So a bit annoying for my flying types, having that electric in the back, as well as stuff like Gren and Slowbro. So being able to stop momentum that way is pretty nice. But yeah, we're going to jump into the game. I do expect him to potentially lead off with something like Shuckle or Lando, trying to get up rocks. And if he does try and lead with a Mon to check my counter lead, it might be something like Charizard, which matches up quite nicely versus my team. Like if he leads with Shuckle, he might expect me to lead off with like a Taunter, so he may lead off with a hard hitter like Lando, Zard, or even Azu here. So I am just going to lead off with my Aerodactyl, as it does check his either his Shuckle lead as well as his Lando or his Zard lead, because I am Ice Fang, I believe, on this arrow. So he's going to lead off with Zard. We are going to fire off a Stone Edge, as this Zard is going to Mega up, and he actually chooses to stay in here. He takes 91 from that edge, and he only deals 55 back with Dragon Claw, so that's pretty nice. We get massive damage off from the Zard turn 1, and if he does stay in, then that's one of his biggest threats eliminated. Obviously I do have Azu in the back, so I do have Slowbro in the back, which does check most Zard variants, so it's not like it was really doing a ton versus me, but it definitely put on the pressure, that's for sure. So I'm just going to take him out here with the Aerial Ace. He didn't really have a safe switch into Aero because his team is very offensive. Like, he's brought a very bulky team. Aero matched up really nicely versus his team actually as a whole. I don't believe he had a Steel type on his team, so he had very little to resist rock attacks aimed at his squad. Nor did he have a fighting type, I believe, at this point in time. So yeah, Aero was definitely a threat. He's going to go into his Sneasel here. I'm just going to go hard out into my Slowbro, knowing that an Ice Shard is likely coming, as that is what he goes for. I could obviously live a knockoff if he did decide to go for it, because I'm pretty fat. So he's going to switch in his Snorlax here on my Skull, and obviously he chooses that. Even with a crit, it does nothing. I'm fearing a Toxic coming my way, and I know that even if he does start to set up, I do have multiple responses to this in the back, and going into Nidoqueen here, blocking the Toxic and getting up rocks is going to be really solid. So we do get that play right. He does fire off the Toxic, as now I can just go for the rocks here, and he's going to switch out into his Landorus. So this is obviously a big threat. If Nidoqueen also threatened Snorlax out there with a potential superpower, so if I was like a Life Orb superpower set, which is actually pretty solid on paper versus his team, considering he has stuff like he has stuff like the Serena, which doesn't appreciate Sludge Wave or Poison Jab. Sucker Punch would be nice for the Zan, as well as just spamming Life Orb Nidoqueen hits versus his team. Having Superpower on there is a nice lure for the Lax, so I can definitely understand the Landorus switch there, but this does afford me rocks, so I can now just go hard out into my Mew. I go Mew here in case he wanted to go Gravity or Smackdown versus my Celesteela, which is a really nice response to his Landorus. Because if he is like Earth Power, Calm Mind, Sludge Wave, something like that, Hidden Power Ice, he's walled by my Celesteela. So I did expect Gravity or Smackdown. As he does go for Smackdown there, obviously we chew that up, and he is now threatened out by the Ice Beam, as I do just fire that off. There was no reason for me not to. If he wanted to go for a cheeky Rocks or a knockoff there, I got a kill there with Mew. So I'm going to go for Ice Beam, as he does bring in his Shuckle. He's going to chew that up. We're going to go hard onto Arrow just to get in before Rocks, as well as being able to just now fire off a Stone Edge, because nothing on his team, as I mentioned earlier, appreciates the Edge. So we're going to take out this Shuckle here with the Stone Edge, which is really nice. So now we've got rid of his Rock or his Webs, so he can't bring Webs anymore, which is really nice for Greninja, which is important. As in comes the Azu, and I can't risk this thing being a setup variant. He was actually Z Azumarill, so he could have been Z Belly Drum. So I needed to respect this. If he was like purely offensive, there's a good chance he could have died to this Stone Edge, because I'm pretty sure I'm adamant on this arrow, and chances are he's just going to click Aqua Jet here, trying to take out my arrow. He could make like the aggressive belly drum play to put himself back in the game if he feels like he's really far behind, but that would also let me potentially crit him or just take him out if he's like really offensive and not bulky at all. So I go for this Stone Edge as he takes me out with the Aqua Jet, and that's obviously really nice for Trevor, because now one of the biggest offensive checks to his team, one of the biggest offensive threats in Arrow is down. That really frees up his Landorus to cause havoc to my team, although as I mentioned I do have some great checks to it. But we still got Gren, and Gren is about to go in, so I do have the Gunk Shot, and I am going to fire that off here. If he goes out to Lax, it just takes damage, and even if I miss there, he's in range of low kicks. So we are A-Belt, as I mentioned, so all of our super effective moves are getting that nice boost. He goes out into his Landorus here. No other real play he could have made here. I'm just going to fire off the Surf and take out this Lando. And he is going to bring in his Azu here. I'm just going to take him out with a Gunk. And Sneasel is going to be left taking 25 from Rocks, and is just going to get dropped by this low kick. So that was my week 2 game up against SheerForce. Very difficult for him to, like, he didn't prep as well around Greninja as he could have, he told me. He was obviously prepping for a few other mons on my team, and he did opt to bring a really offensive squad, which left him vulnerable to stuff like mixed Greninja. So that's just the risk you run when you run offense versus a team with fantastic like offensive checks. Obviously he did have probably more than likely Webs on the Shuckle, so if Webs were up, that would have meant Greninja was a bit less effective, because it wouldn't have been able to check stuff like the Sneasel and the Landorus, unless I had like Water Shuriken. But obviously that is part of the reason why I went hard into Arrow, because I was Defog Arrow, and if he did want to set up Webs, I can just constantly Defog. I can even Suicide Defog if he wants to on-call me into a Defog and get in one of my, either my Nidoqueen or my Gren to revenge whatever he brings in to take out the Arrow. So that was the kind of thought process behind that. I was never going to allow him to get up Webs, because Gren just basically took this game home as soon as I got a free switch in. So yeah, that was my week 2 game. Very short and sweet, but a very fun game, no doubt. Trev is a divisional opponent of mine, so I will be playing him later on in the season. So we'll have to see if his team remains the same group of threats, or if he does switch it up and make some trades throughout the season. That'll be interesting. Rematches are always fun. But yeah, I definitely look forward to playing him again. I'll probably link his channel in the description below. I don't know if he still uploads Mons content, but he is a pretty cool vlogger, so I definitely recommend you guys go check out his vlogging content if you're into that. I'll leave his channel in the description below. And if you guys did enjoy, drop a like. Let me know what you thought of this, thought of the match, and think of Gren. I'm really loving Gren so far this season. Curious to hear how you guys see it. So that's going to be the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. A very quick one today, but I'll try and pump out some more content soon. I'll catch you guys later.